Welcome back to Organist Launchpad. In this video, I'll be sharing some tips on how to manage the somatic anxiety response to stress. The first thing that I'd like to explore is breathing. I think we all know that breathing is important for performing more effectively, but sometimes it's not quite clear how exactly to breathe more effectively. There's a really interesting 2023 Stanford study by David Spiegel and Andrew Huberman. They looked at several different types of breathing in terms of its effect on nerves and anxiety and general well-being. What they found is that there's a particular type of breathing that they called cyclic sighing, which emphasizes long exhales, that tends to reduce physical arousal and also enhances positive mood. It's a pretty simple concept, and it looks a little bit like this. So the idea is to take one long inhale with your nose, and then another quick sip of air right at the end. So again, and then a long exhale through your mouth. The idea is that this does seem to help reducing physiological arousal, and it also seems to put you in a better mood, both of which are helpful in a performance situation. This is something that I've heard lots of musicians actually talk about as well and do backstage before going on to play. Keep in mind that the cyclic sighing won't make you 100% calm like you feel in the practice room, but that's actually okay. The goal isn't actually to be 100% calm. The goal is actually to have some tools at your disposal that you can use to try to regulate the anxiety response just enough so that it doesn't spiral out of control. You might have had the experience of what's called sometimes the anxiety spiral, or maybe you're sitting backstage and you're feeling okay, but then you start to feel the nerves kick in a little bit. And as the nerves kick in, then you start to worry about the fact that the nerves are kicking in, which then makes you a little bit more anxious, which then makes you worry about it more, which makes the anxiety kick in even more, and then it sort of spirals out of control. So the goal then really is to be able to experience this increased physical activation under pressure more as excitement than anxiety. And how do we do that? Well, this is an area of research that's known as cognitive reappraisal. There's a 2014 study by Alison Wood-Brooks that explores this in a really interesting way. She recruited 113 students and had them sing in front of an experimenter with a certain amount of money that was at stake in terms of their singing accuracy. They sung a Journey song called Don't Stop Believin' with a karaoke machine to measure how effectively they were singing. They were divided up into 3 groups before singing. 2 of the groups were asked before they sang, how are you feeling? One of those groups was told to say in advance, when you're asked this question, respond by saying, I'm excited. Another of the groups was told to respond to this question by saying, I'm anxious. And a third group wasn't asked anything at all. Their performances were recorded, and when the karaoke machine produced the scores for each individual, it turns out that there was a significant difference in the performance accuracy of those 3 groups. The group that said, I'm excited, scored an average of 81%. The group that said, I'm anxious, scored the worst at around 53%. The group that wasn't asked anything at all, they were right about in the middle, around 69% in terms of accuracy. So how can it be that just a few different words that we might say to ourselves backstage before performing can make such a difference in the accuracy and the effectiveness of our performances? Well, it seems that saying, I'm excited, tends to shift us into a more positive, stress enhances performance sort of opportunity mindset, whereas saying I'm anxious tends to shift us more towards a stress diminishes performance threat mindset. As you know from experience, when you're in that anxious, nervous place, it's very difficult to try to calm down and feel like you do in the practice room. And in fact, the more important we think it is that we have to get to that place, the harder it becomes, and again leads to that anxiety spiral that we talked about a little bit earlier. Whereas if you're in this anxious state, it's not a whole lot different physiologically than when you're really excited. If you think back to times when you've had a performance that maybe started off with nerves, but then by the end of it, things started going well and you ended up in a very excited place, you know from experience that this is something that is possible. And so it's easier when we tell ourselves this backstage to think that maybe this could be a sign of excitement as opposed to anxiety. So in terms of how to apply these findings to your own practice and performance, well, one simple one is just to use the mantra, I'm excited, backstage. When you wake up in the morning, start feeling a little bit nervous, to say, oh, I'm excited. It's going to be a good day on stage. When you're backstage, you start feeling a little bit of the nerves kick in. Again, you can use the mantra, I'm excited, to try to interpret that as a sign that things are going to go well and that you're ready and eager to get on stage. Even if you're not quite sure if that's how you feel, just using that as a mantra can help you start to get more into that mindset. The other thing that can be really helpful is to start practicing associating increased activation physically with performing well. For instance, there's a sports psychologist in California who I've heard has his clients walk on a treadmill and get their heart rate up and then do mental imagery or visualization of the performance that's coming up. Usually we're accustomed to doing imagery or visualization when we're calm, with our eyes closed, sitting down or lying down. But in this particular situation, it's more useful to try to get our body activated and our heart rate up and then do visualization so that we can start getting used to feeling that way even in our imagination before we go on stage. In the next video, we'll be talking about how to start managing cognitive anxiety, specifically how to change your practice a little bit so that it's oriented more towards performance and not just skill development.